Hey, it is the 30th of October, 2021, Halloween weekend, and I am going to be doing a spooky inspired makeup. So just a disclaimer, once again, I'm not a beauty influencer or beauty content creator, and this is not a makeup tutorial. So you've been warned. And I think what I'm also going to do is talk about scary stuff. Why not? Since it is Halloween weekend. So Halloween has never really been a thing in South Africa. Only in the past few years has it really become more popular. It's extremely hot in South Africa this time of year. We're talking like 30s. Those are the temps in Celsius. So I don't actually think I've ever been to a Halloween party. Oh wait, no, I'm a liar. I've been to like a combined Halloween and birthday party. My brother's birthday is in November. So in 2019, he had a Halloween/birthday party. I dressed up as Billie Eilish. I'll link the picture. I think personally I looked amazing. I put lots of effort into it. And I didn't even win Best Dress, which is a travesty. And then probably a month later, I went to another dress up party, and it was a superhero themed one. And I dressed up as Rogue from X-Men. And I mean, that outfit was pretty good. I'll also link a picture. But it wasn't as good as the Billie Eilish one. And I won that contest. And then I remember in high school, we used to have Halloween movie nights sometimes around this time of year. And it was always fun because there would be like almost a haunted house situation in the school hall. They would put on a scary movie. And I remember one of the nights the movie was Insidious. And I didn't really watch it. I was on my phone most of the time. Because I actually couldn't handle scary movies for a very long time. I remember when I was a kid, I'm just talking here. When I was a kid, I remember watching The Nightmare Before Christmas and being very intrigued by it. But I think I always had a fascination for horror or darker things. But it only really manifested when I became a teenager. But still, even then, I couldn't handle proper scary stuff. Like I would watch Tim Burton. I was a huge fan of Tim Burton. I still am a fan of him. I enjoy his movies. But yeah, that was the darkest I could go, like Sweeney Todd. That was as scary as I would watch. I watched The Ring when I was like 12, 13. And that absolutely terrified me. Couldn't sleep for a very long time after watching that. I also watched the trailer for The Exorcism of Emily Rose. And that freaked me out so much in the cinema. I remember that clearly. I couldn't handle it. And then a few years later, I ended up watching the movie and I enjoyed it. But by that stage, I was getting more accustomed to horrors. My sister's always been very much into horror movies and I asked her to like get me started. And we watched The Conjuring and that was difficult. I couldn't handle that very well. And then we watched Sinister, which I like got sick from. Then I took a very long break from horror movies. Years, and then eventually started out again with M. Night Shyamalan. 1 year, it was 2018, I just had a craving to watch the movie Signs. That's how it all started. And I watched it and I really liked it. And then I watched all his movies, all the good ones. I still do enjoy his movies. I will always watch an M. Night movie whenever it comes out. I expected to be scared after watching The Sixth Sense. I did not expect to sob. I honestly sobbed after watching that movie. I also watched it at a weird time though, because I was kind of going through a season of intense insomnia. It was really bad. I honestly thought I was going mad, like severely sleep deprived, and I was so emotional. And just that ending, the scene between the kid and his mom, had me sobbing. And then I watched The Village, which I'd watched on a plane once and was so freaked out by it and also couldn't sleep well after watching it and felt quite ill. And then watched it again around that time and really liked it. And then Lady in the Water, which I loved. Unbreakable, Split, Glass. And then recently I have been watching his series Servant on Apple TV, which is phenomenal. Usually I can tell what Mr. M. Night is doing in a story. And as I was watching Servant, for probably the first 3/4 of it, I was like, I'm not sure what he's trying to do here or what the story is. But then in the final 2 episodes, it all came together and I thought, wow, what a brilliant idea and execution. Servant deals with a topic that I haven't really dealt with in a series or movie before, and I think they did it really well. What I really like about his style and his storytelling is that it's usually very human stories set against the backdrop of a horror. The focus is not necessarily on the scary thing or the monster or the darkness. It's about the characters and how they respond to it and how they deal with it. So the perfect example is Signs. It's about an alien invasion, right? But the real story is about a man's struggle with his faith, his loss of faith and the death of his wife. And I just think it's brilliant. So that's when I started watching more easier to watch kind of horror, you know. Bird Box, which I loved, A Quiet Place, which I loved. At the end of 2018, The Haunting of Hill House came out on Netflix. And I was so intrigued by that story. I vividly remember how intrigued I was. I refused to watch it because I thought this is far too scary for me. I won't be able to handle this. I did lots of research about it and the story and the book. This is looking quite good so far. And, you know, watched the trailer a few times. I even dreamt about it. I would have nightmares about that show, and I hadn't even watched it. It just fascinated me. See what I mean when I talk about this fascination I've always had with like darker things. The fascination kind of stuck with me for a very long time. And finally, at the end of 2019, I thought I was ready to watch it. So I started watching it, and I remember I would watch 1 episode a day. So it took me 10 days to finish it. We had thunderstorms like every evening when I would watch the show, and I'd have a cup of tea. And that was around the time that my grandfather passed away. So it was a very like heartbreaking time, but strangely also a very special time for me. And because the show deals with grief, it just meant a lot. And then, you know, after I watched Hill House, I watched all of Mike Flanagan's stuff, literally all of it. And he's probably my favorite. He's my favorite horror director. I feel like he also tells really human stories against the backdrop of darkness and horror. And I mean, if you just watch his interviews or hear him talking about his stories and about the horror genre in general, it blows me away, like how smart he is and how true it is, you know, what he says about horror, that it's kind of like, it shows us kind of the darkest parts of ourselves, or the world of humanity, really, and the things that we've done and the ways that we've hurt people or ourselves. And there's this sense of triumph that people get when they watch something where somebody overcomes a really dark or scary thing, and I relate to that so hard. I honestly think going through chronic pain and insomnia, like when it's been the absolute worst, you just have to kind of sit there in this horrific pain and you can't sleep. So imagine how traumatizing that is. So I think that after all of that, I was like desensitized to horrific things because I had been through such horrific things. Okay, I'm gonna try a really dramatic wing, but let's see how it goes. This is so annoying that one of the best wings I've ever done is for a video and not for like just my own living life. Anyway, so I watched Hill House. I think I've seen Hill House like 6 times now altogether, and I've read the book twice. If you haven't seen it and you like horror movies and stories that deal with human suffering, you know, there is a supernatural element to it. We got some ghosts, we got some hauntings in the house, hauntings on the hill, but it's very much more about the characters and the individual horror that they each experience. Because, you know, as the show and Mike says not all ghosts are dead. Some are a wish, some are a memory, some are regrets, some are grief. Which is just so smart. I highly, highly, highly recommend that. Also, the soundtrack is just exquisite. Okay, these are not even. Is it gonna bug me? A little bit. Let me try fix it. Okay, this is looking more cat eye and less wing. I think I've gone too far. I'm just gonna leave it at that and we will work with it. And then of course Blind Manor came out a year later, which I also loved. And then Midnight Mass was this year's release, and that was like insane. I also highly recommend that. I've never seen anything like Midnight Mass ever. I won't spoil it, but I did not see it coming. This is like 90s vampire. Does that work? So at this stage now I know I can handle horror. And then this year, finally in 2021, I ventured into Ari Aster. I don't know how you say his name. Is it Ari Aster? Who did Midsommar and Hereditary. I even watched The Strange Thing About the Johnsons, which I got anxiety from watching. And as, funny enough, my friend Ari says, I enjoyed those ones in the right way. So it's quite a weird thing to say. I enjoyed Midsommar and Hereditary. I loved them because they are very intense movies, but it makes sense to say in the right way. I enjoyed them. I mean, so his stories are also technically human stories sent against the backdrop of a nightmare or a horror, but they're quite out there. Quite. I'm gonna try put fake eyelashes on. I haven't done this in years. Let's see how this goes. Dude, I don't know how old this is. This is super, super old. I wonder if the glue is dried up. I just blinked it off. I have mad respect for people who can do their lashes, because I can't. Okay, I think I did it. It feels like it's gonna fall off at any moment. Okay, we're doing the second one now. Guys, I think I did it. Oh my goodness. I quite like this look. It doesn't look as vampire-y as I thought it was going to. I would say my favorite horror movie is a tie between Gerald's Game and The Sixth Sense. And if I had to choose, it would probably be Gerald's Game. It's got a very kinky premise, but if you actually watch it, it's not so much kinky. It's more about survival, really. This has turned out to be more witchy than vampire-y. It's more gothic witchy. I guess that's the look. Who wants me to cast a love spell on them? Comment below. And that's it. I'll see you next time. Bye. This eyelash is coming off.